Hey, Red.
Yeah.
Memes.
I mean, where's the lie? I mean, if you take away the cameos and references, what even is that movie?
uh, uh.
I still stand by the old Mario movie is amazing. Can't believe the new one ruined the opportunity for when Bowser sees Donkey Kong for him to just point and say monkey.
Okay. Well. Hello.
Internet.
Hello, Internet. Welcome to game development. Last time I didn't know how to use Godot. Uh, Today I still don't know how to use Godot.
Damn, what were you even doing in that time?
Uh, Mostly watching you play Color Splash. Red's dead silence of not knowing how to respond to that live.
What we should be doing is working on some assets.
What I should be doing is working on Brothas. Uh, so I think fuck it. Let's start off this stream, and I can watch a fucking tutorial. Because there are some basics I
Among
still
the
don't
physics
know
body
enough about. So, uh, this is Godot 3.x basics, which still in Godot 3.x. So, hey, kinematic bodies by Javelin Studio, who has 577 subscribers. Go give them the watch, because I don't know, they probably appreciate it. Not that I give them much of a boost. I only have 34 subs. So yeah, I'm gonna turn on that screen capture. Whoa, and I'm gonna full screen it so that it's not just me looking at this. Godot work different than other game engines I've used, as in mostly Game Maker. Shut up.
Among the physics body nodes, there's one in particular that often ends up being the backbone of most Godot games. But why is that? What are kinematic bodies? Well, put shortly, they're effectively static bodies with a bit of extra baggage, giving them the ability to, as their name suggests, move kinematically. Or in other words, move and react to collisions while ignoring.
You know what? You wanna watch the tutorial too, Red?
Sure, I guess.
Because it's gonna be awkward for you as a co-commentator with me just watching this and you're like, what's going on? There you go. That one should have audio. You're welcome. And I'm gonna go back and go.
Among the physics body nodes, there's one in particular that often ends up being the backbone of most Godot games. But why is that? What are kinematic bodies? Well, put shortly, they're effectively static bodies with a bit of extra baggage, giving them the ability to, as their name suggests, move kinematically. Or in other words, move and react to collisions while ignoring the physics engine. Said movement is facilitated by the kinematic body's unique move and family of functions, those being move and collide, move and slide, and move and slide with snap, each having their own very important behavioral differences. So how do these functions work? Well, let's start with the most basic of the trio, being made of only 4 arguments, with the first 2 being shared between all of them, the move and collide function, which does exactly as you would expect. Move the body along a given vector, stopping when it would collide with another body, and returning any information related to that collision. Take note that information will be returned in the form of either a kinematic collision or kinematic collision 2D, depending on the type of environment you're working in. Now beyond that, let's go over the previously mentioned vector, which is defined within the function's first argument, which will be either 2D or 3D depending on the environment type. This is true for any vectors, so keep that in mind. Past that, the next argument is a bool representing if the body will have quote-unquote infinite inertia. This dictates how it interacts with rigid body nodes, with the default value of true causing the body to effectively ignore collisions with rigid bodies and push them out of the way regardless of weight or mass, to the point where they will even be pushed inside of or through other bodies when not able to get out of the way. However, when set to false, the body will, generally, be unable to push rigid bodies at all, even if the mass and weight are as low as possible. Personally, I tend to prefer setting this to false as it's easier to control interactions that way. Following that is another bool, which at first glance may seem a bit strange to even have as an option, as when it's set to its default of true, the movement will ignore any collisions that involve raycast shapes, and when it's set to false, it'll do the opposite. The reason this is here as an option is because move and collide is typically used more for testing if a collision will happen rather than for actual movement itself. And with that in mind, raycast shapes are usually used more as whiskers to detect the ground or other objects, in order to keep consistent movement up and down slopes and so on rather than as true traditional collision shapes. So it's sometimes better to ignore them when trying to test if a certain movement will cause a collision or not. And that's where our next and final argument comes in, being yet another bool, this time defaulted to false, representing the test-only option, which is aptly named, as if it's set to true, it causes the method to simply check if a given movement would cause a collision, and if so, return any collision data without actually moving the body itself. This can be great for many things, like helping AI figure out where it's going and what certain movements would collide with and where. Though if you strictly want to see if a collision would happen and don't care about its context, there is another, more simplified method, test move, that does a test movement between a specified starting position, given as the method's first argument, and ending position, the method's second argument, with the final argument representing if the movement would have infinite inertia. This method is less computationally taxing than move and collide, but only returns a bool. And that's all there is to move and collide, but what about its cousin, the move and slide function? Well, with 6 arguments, 2 of which are shared with the previous, it also moves the body, but with some big differences, primarily being that when the body collides, it'll slide rather than come to a complete stop. Now, one of the 2 mentioned shared arguments is the first, which is the vector that determines the body's movement. There is, however, a significant difference in how this vector works, though, as it's automatically multiplied by the delta of the physics process. That's why it seems like move and collide moves so much further with the same input if you were to test them side by side. This is done because move and slide's intended purpose is actual movement, and multiplying the vector by the delta is something you would almost always want to do, as it makes the movement consistent. This does mean, though, that you'll want to make sure and only use this function or methods that use this function within the physics process, otherwise the movement will be all wrong. And after that is the first unique argument, another vector, this time representing the up direction. This argument is how the body knows if it's on the ground, wall, or ceiling, and has a huge impact on how the function behaves, such as with the next argument, stop on slope. A bool, defaulted to false, controlling of the body will slide down slopes when its movement vector is straight down, or, in other words, when the body isn't moving and is just being pulled down by gravity, with down being relative to the previously established up direction. The next argument is an integer, defaulted to 4, which represents the maximum number of times the body can slide per step. This isn't something you'll often find yourself having to mess with, as a large number of slides per step only, typically, comes up in games with a lot of complex geometry or where characters are moving really fast, as either will exponentially increase the probability of multiple slides. Past that is an argument defaulted to the radian equivalent of 45 degrees, which represents the maximum floor and ceiling angles. As you probably expect, this is used to give up direction a bit more context so the body can more effectively determine if it's touching a floor, wall, or ceiling. And finally we come to the last argument, which is actually the other argument move and slide shares with move and collide, the bool representing infinite inertia, which works exactly the same here as it did there. So after that we can move on to the last variation of the move and function.
I mean, I get this. I just don't know if I like how much control I'm handing over to the engine with this. I don't know. Everything I've seen is like, so you're using move and slide, right? Like, well, move and slide seems to take a lot of the control away from me.
Slide with snap, which is almost identical to its less wordy brother outside of one very impactful difference. It has the ability to snap onto slopes. This behavior is controlled by its only unique argument, which is added right between the movement vector and up direction. Said argument itself is also a vector, which at first glance you may think is for a raycast to detect compatible slopes for the body to snap to. And you'd be on the right track, but it's a bit more complicated than that. So I'll go over what the function does in sequence. First, it moves the body exactly the same way move and slide would. Then, if it's on a floor post-movement, that's it. It stays where the movement brought it. But if not, it will then check if it was on a floor during the previous physics step. If it was, and the snap vector isn't all zeros, the function will then do an extra movement along the snap vector to see if that movement would collide with a floor. If not, then the body stays where it was at the end of the initial movement. But if the test movement did hit a floor, then the body will be snapped to that floor. Keep in mind that the faster you have the body moving, the larger the snap vector needs to be in order to work. As the further it moves per physics step, the further down the test movement will have to go in order to reach a given slope. Though take note that the larger the snap vector is, the more computationally taxing it is. And you also need to keep in mind that it is very possible to have too large of a snap vector to where it will basically just teleport to a floor below it whenever it goes off a ledge. So I always recommend to play around with this argument to try and find the perfect vector for your needs. On top of all that, there is another complexity to consider when using move and slide with snap. That being that it's normally impossible to jump while using it. This is because if the movement vector doesn't get you high enough to be out of range of the snap vector within the first physics step, the body will just be snapped right back down to the ground. There is a simple solution for this though. The moment the body would go to jump, set the snap vector to be all zeros, and then reset it back to what it would have been originally.
Oh, okay. I know why that would make it impossible to jump.
On the next physics step. This allows the body to get off the floor, and then since it's been off the ground on the previous physics step, it won't get snapped back down. So you would think that would be all there is to know about the move and functions, and technically you'd be correct, but there are several functions within kinematic
I found
bodies
an error in the video that he probably already knows about. You listed argument 6 twice at the top. Loser.
directly relate to the move and slide with snap functions. The first three of which are is on floor, is on ceiling, and is on wall, all of which doing exactly what you would expect. Returning a bool representing if the body was touching their corresponding surface the last time you called either of the previously mentioned functions. And as you would likely suspect, these are all incredibly useful for triggering animations, determining if the player or NPC can perform a certain action, and so on. Following those are another two functions, get slide count and get slide collision. These functions are how you actually get information on the collisions from the move and slide functions, with the first getting the number of times a body collided with, aka slid against, other bodies during the last time you called either of the functions. And the second gives you the actual collision information of whatever collision you gave it the index for, in the form of a kinematic collision or kinematic collision 2D, whichever is appropriate. These two functions are usually used together in order to either loop through and get data on each thing the body had collided with, or just get data on whatever the final thing the body collided with was. Then next up is another group of two, being get floor velocity and get floor normal. Both, of course, only work if the body was actually on the floor during the previous physics step, with them doing exactly what they sound like. The former returning the velocity of said floor, and the latter returning the floor's normal, or in other words, a vector representing the direction said floor was pointing. And now, after all that, we come to the final piece of this kinematic body puzzle, the 2D exclusive property, sync to physics, which does two things. Firstly, disabling both move and slide functions, and then making it so all other movement, whether it be from directly altering the body's position within a script or moving it with an animation player, is synced to the physics engine. This is really important for making things like moving platforms because it ensures that the body's recorded velocity is always accurate to its current movement. That's why when you try to make a platform without sync to physics, other bodies on top of it seem to drift around a little every time said platform changes directions or slows down, as the bodies are using the platform's velocity from the previous physics step for determining their motion, causing them to always be a frame behind. Sync to physics fixes this by effectively making the platform's motion happen at the same time its linear velocity would be updated, which in turn makes it so all bodies on top of the platform will read the right velocity and no longer drift around.
This 2D exclusive properties.
And that's it, effectively all there is to know about kinematic bodies and how to use them. If you have any feedback or suggestions for the topics to cover, please don't forget to leave
Okay. Don't have Godot's window maximized. There we go. If I'm gonna do move and slide, I don't need to multiply by delta. So let's do move and slide. And run it again and see if there's a notable difference in how it feels. Oh, that gravity is ineffective with move and slide. Well, that's confusing. V speed plus equals gravity. Oh, shit, I still have collision code here. You can't do if collision with move and slide. Okay. It works basically like that. I forgot you can't do that. Also, don't do var collision equals move and slide. Because move and slide has its own things. Last collision from the previous move and slide. Probably what do we want? Our collision equals get underscore slide collision in parentheses get slide count and then subtract 1 because the number of slides, like if it does one move and slide, the index it would return is 1, but the index it starts at 0, so you subtract 1, which makes sense. The index count for whatever the last collision will be will always be the number of slides minus 1. So, okay. Get that. Now I have the collision stored to a variable if I want to test things. Let's have a new variable added that I was trying to have last time. Rounded var rounded equals false. Let's set rounded equals is on floor. So now is on floor checks if the move and slide has you colliding with a floor. Now, let's go to the fucking move and slide. Up direction. Up direction should be 0, 1, I believe. Yeah, because it's using radial. No, not radial. It's specifically not. Vector 2, 0, 1. Okay. Argument 2 is a right. I'm not going to mess with the arguments after those for now. Now let's try to add some jump code. Here's the thing. I don't want to have jumps happen after I calculate movement and collisions. That would be ineffective. But that means I'm going to basically be checking for collision. Interesting. Okay. I'm starting to figure out how you can do things. One of the biggest things I was missing is that you can use move and collide to just check if it's going to collide with something, and you don't have to actually do the movement part of it. But you just have to tell the engine that that's what you're using it for. In Game Maker, checking for a collision only checks for a collision. What you do after that collision is up to you. You have to, like, tell the engine what you want to do. This makes a lot of assumptions of what you want to do with the collision, mixing it into the movement, and you have to tell it that you don't want to make those assumptions explicitly, which makes it easier for a new programmer to just write basic movement code, but it makes it so that if you want to control the way everything works, it takes a bit more effort and is a bit more obfuscated. I don't have strong opinions for or against, besides that I can be a bit control freakish about some of these things. So, yeah. If I want to do jumping, I should put it here. If rounded. I used parentheses on an if statement again. Rounded and input dot is action just pressed. Move. I need the quotes. Move. Jump. Then. Oh, right, we need a colon in Godot for if statements. V speed equals negative 10. Negative 1,000. How fast is the movement speed? 500. Let's just set that to 1,000 and see what happens. And set grounded to false. So let's test if jumping works. No, it fucking doesn't. So if rounded, why did I swear to fuck Red, I don't know if I'll ever get used to not using parentheses for if statements. I'm just gonna put the jump code on if grounded, so that if I in fact do ever succeed the check of being grounded, I should jump. Except that doesn't work because V speed is, what the fuck? Wait, what direction is down? Did I put the wrong direction? I think it might be -1 is considered down. Or is considered... That's why it wasn't working. I put the up direction as down. So now I am able to jump. No control over my height or anything, but that's okay. I know how to do that. It's also very floaty right now, but I can tweak the physics once I've got everything working, you know? I sold my soul and gave up and used Move and Slide, but it's my first time using Godot. Maybe I should stop trying to go and outsmart the built-in things like that. Move and Collide would hypothetically give me a lot more control, but also I'd have to know a lot more about Godot to use that control. And I have ideas of how it would work, but I don't know enough yet. And Move and Slide probably does everything I need it to if I just know when to tell it what to do. Instead of just going, but it's doing these things for me, but what if it does it when I don't want it to do it? Tell it not to. Oh yeah. I forgot to test if I can jump in midair. No. Okay. Wanted to make sure, because the way Is On Floor works, Red, is it checks the most recent collision from Move and Slide, and checks if that collision was with a floor. And I just wanted to make sure that if there wasn't a collision the last time it ran Move and Slide, that it would update it to false and not just say, well, there wasn't a collision, so let's just not fuck with that, you know? I figured it would set it to false if there was no collision, but I wasn't sure. I know that also setting grounded to equal false is a borderline unnecessary step for after I jump, but it makes it so that I can adjust my... If there's something I need to do between jump and move, I can have it so it knows it's not on the ground without having to do a collision check. I don't know if I will, but that's why this is here. I can pretty safely assume if I push jump that I'm not on the ground. I should open back up my stream just in case there's people in stream chat. Also, I don't have any background music. Also, I'm still streaming the video for you. Fun. I'm gonna change to the screen. I've been relying on Sonic music ever since I started and trying to make it so I use different Sonic pieces each time. How about Hotline Sawani's Sonic Synthwave, upbeat and happy Sonic music compilation EDM Megamix? If this is too high energy, I'm gonna not. But the fact that it says it's Synthwave tells me it's probably not too high energy. Also, want to be clear, this isn't even like, I don't know what I would say are preferred music genres for me. I like lo-fi, I like synthwave, but it's not even like most of what I listen to. But for just purposes of streaming like this, it works a lot better than something that's more attention drawing. It's easy to have it on in the background while I'm talking and interacting with the stream chat than something bolder. And also because it's Sonic music, I'm less likely to get fucking attacked by copyright. I would love to do something like put Mario music or something on in the back, or Zelda, or... Yeah, but I just sit there, I look at Nintendo and race through that, I go, I don't know! Unless I was, like, playing a Nintendo game, I don't know if they'd be too happy about that. Oh yeah, I didn't set the video to loop. There we go. So, let's adjust the scale to be smart enough to know if I'm still holding jump. Do I want to start implementing states? Because do I want to use states to be able to tell if I'm still supposed to be jumping, or do I want to use things like my vertical speed? I probably want to use states because that would tell me that I'm not just like being flung up in the air, I'm jumping, right? So it might be time for me to actually implement states. So that might be something I want to do first, is make it so that movement states are actually a thing. Or actually, before I do that, I think I want to change it so that your air physics are different than your ground physics. Because right now I have, all of the fucking movement code is built under the assumption you're on the ground. For the horizontal movement, right? Which means you have just as much control in the air as you do on the ground. Which I don't want. You know, like, that feels super Mario, you know? You should only be able to influence your movement in midair, not, like... control it like that. So, let's preface all of this with if grounded. And a colon. Let's put a comment here saying, are you on the ground? And let's take every bit of this code and tab it over. And then put an else here. So now I have it so that this movement code only is used if you're on the ground. Also, you might be wondering, Red, why... It's funny, me talking to you about things you have a 50-50 shot minimum of already knowing is me having more dialogue to engage with the audience that's less likely to know this already, which is amusing. But anyway... So, the reason I'm have a variable grounded when grounded is literally just the result of the is on floor check. You could say, why don't you just check is on floor? With this being the only exception to that, right? And I'm not even sure if I will use this. Is that every time you do is on floor, that's pulling on a check. I guess technically is on floor is pulling from collision data, but it needs to pull from like a list. It's not as intensive as GameMaker where I would be running like a check because it kind of is a built-in variable, but it's still like a check you have to do every time, right? Whereas grounded just stores the result. So every time I do it, it's simply just, yeah, here's the result. Whereas if I did is on floor, it would have to search through, like, what was the results of the last collision? See the specific part of the data. And it's probably not a big deal in Godot because of how is on floor works. And if I was handling this differently in Godot, like wasn't using move and slide, the grounded would probably be even more important. But it's to reduce the number of checks I'm doing, so I only do it once instead of doing it every time I want to check if you're on the ground. So, that's the mindset. I'm not enough of an expert at Godot to know if it matters that much in this context, but whatever. Else, gonna want the same if hdir else So I'm thinking that top speed should be more of a suggestion when jumping, or when you're in the air, rather. A lot of platformers do this, but instead of okay, instead of when you're on the ground where it will actively try to slow you down to your top speed if you're over it, right? In the air, it just doesn't let you accelerate past your top speed. But if you're past your top speed, it goes, well, okay, I guess you're already going that fast, right? And I think I want to do that, especially because I think it can be more fun. You might know in a lot of platformers, including Mario games, but also Sonic games do this too, like classic Sonic, where if you jump, you will not slow down from friction, right? As long as you're still holding forward, that is. You will not slow down from friction in the air, right? Which isn't realistic, but in real life, obviously, there is less friction in the air than there is on the ground, you know? And simplifying that to no friction can be fun. Depends on the game. Or you could be Mega Man and just make it so you have full fucking control of every action, no matter what state you're in. Which works for its purposes, but it is a big middle finger to physics. So, point being, I'm not going to be checking if you're moving faster than your top speed. Instead, I'm going to want to check if Well, I am going to want to check if you're moving at or faster than your top speed, but I'm instead going to want to only do that to not add to your speed. Basically, I want to do this without the else statement, right? Because the else is slowing you down if you're above your top speed, which I don't want to do. I want you to just have your top speed. However, I'm going to want to change the acceleration values. Should the run key affect how quickly you can accelerate in the air? What do you think? Like, logically, it doesn't make any sense. I don't remember if Mario does or doesn't let you do that. It might even be game-specific. But it does give you a bit more air control, where you can say, I want to accelerate faster in the air or slower in the air, depending if you're holding on to the run button, right? Ooh. Red. What if I had it so that in this game, it would take more work down the line, but what if I had it so that the run button only was used with the D-pad, and the analog stick would give you full analog control over your speed, but the run button would be useful for giving you some speed control while still using your D-pad? You would still use the run button with the analog stick, but only as like a grab button or something, depending on how this game controls. I'd need to think about it. But like, you could optionally, if you like using the analog stick for a 2D game, use it to get extra minute control over your analog for how much speed you want to influence you want. I think that would lean into the more competitive aspect for it, you know? Like, no, I really want to tailor how much I'm holding that. And if that's the case, I might want to consider using, like, vectors for movement inputs instead of just horizontal and vertical input. Those are all things I can change later if I need to. I'm not even sure if I want to do that. But I'd rather get the movement system working first, I think. But I could be making it more complex to change down the line. Also, I don't even have controllers working yet. I wouldn't have a way to test that. I don't imagine it's hard, I just haven't. I do think I want the run button to affect your movement, though. I'm going to have how much your acceleration affects your, gonna have how much acceleration affects your air movement. Can change that at some other point if I want to. If you are slower than run speed times run mod, yeah. Then accelerate. If you're not, I don't care. I really don't care. Actually, I do care. But only if you're not holding the same direction that you're moving. else if... Is that how else if needs to be handled? Makes sense. So if H'dir not equals the sine of H speed, right? Then H speed minus equals Excel times run mod times H'dir. Give you more ability to turn yourself around in the air than accelerate. Like this. We should have some simplifications for H speed and V speed to round them to 0 if they're less than 1. Whoa! That is not what I thought was going to happen. I don't know if I like the way friction is working so far. Why the fuck is it accelerating when I... Oh, hold on. It's accelerating when I hold the opposite direction. What the fuck? I see what my problem is. Fuck. I don't need an else if here, I just need an else. I think that was my problem. No, it wasn't. If hdir equals sine h speed, that should work just fine. I don't understand why that's wrong. So we start with the absolute value of h speed, and we add acceleration and multiplied by the run modification and then halved. Right. So basically we're adding half of the walking acceleration to run speed, which that's 1. And we're going with the smallest. And the other one is run speed times run mod, which is your top speed. And then we multiply that by your horizontal direction, which we've confirmed is the same direction you're already moving. There is a decimal point here. This should be working. Oh, wait. That might be what's wrong. Oh, I deleted the multiplications. Oopsie. Hey. That one I was holding right in the air and I was not moving. I can't gain momentum from a standstill and a jump. Why? Let's think through this. Oh. But why am I able to do that when grounded? Am I able to start moving on the ground with no horizontal speed, but I can... What? If the horizontal direction equals sine of h speed. It should fall into else. Oh! It uses the turnaround code when I'm standing still, but I don't have that for... okay. At least it doesn't work that way for... If h_dir equals sine of h speed, or speed equals 0. I don't need to check if h_dir doesn't equal 0 because it's already after this. That should fix things, right? Okay. Ooh. Ugh. I'm gonna hit save. Okay. I think the next step after this would be to implement states. I should have something here to round off these speed values. If h speed, or I want absolute value of h speed, is less than 1, then just assume h speed equals 0. And do the same thing with vertical speed. This shouldn't have any noticeable change on the way it looks, given how high the numbers are. but it could matter in some fringe cases, and especially if I want to be able to just assume my speed is 0, this makes it so that in situations where I should be able to assume that it is. Whee! Leaves the room. Okay. Let's save this. Currently, my tummy be rumbly. I have not had enough to eat today. I'm gonna, like, grab something, take a break, come back, and then start the next major portion of this. This is already more productive than yesterday. And Red is more quiet. I'm sorry, Red. I'll be right back. Okay, so for my state machine, parentheses again. How many states am I going to need right now? Stand, walk, jump, fall. Is that it? I think so. Oh, forgot to double cosine. think I want to update the state machine. I'm gonna make another variable. Variable facing equals 1. Also, I should probably be using constants for some of these things. Good. So, Red.
Hmm.
In Mario, you're allowed to turn around in midair, right?
Depends on the game.
In 2D Mario, I should specify.
I don't think you can in Mario 1,
No. But
but I know you can in World. I forget. I'm pretty sure you can in 3 and 2. I think 1 is the exception. And maybe like,
I'd imagine Lost Levels as well.
well, that plays exactly the same. So yeah, I think 1 maybe Land. I forget.
I don't remember about Land.
I mean, Land does control worse, so I imagine.
I'm debating if I want you to be able to turn around in midair. In most fighting games, you can't turn around in midair. At least not easily. And the reason for that is to make jumping a committal option. Right? So, because the idea is that where you're facing affects your physics. And if you could freely turn around, you could freely fuck with that on a dime. And make it look so you're less punishable. And if I want to push this more into the territory of a competitive game, I can see some more probable advantages of allowing you to, or not allowing you to turn around in midair. Old answer. I don't know if this still even applies. Hmm. that does work. I thought it... I don't think I'm muted, no. I'm sorry, Super Flame, I was so focused. Yeah, I'm coding... Trying to flip the sprite, just got it to work. Trying to get the movement working. Currently, it's... like those, whoa. Super Flame might have left. I don't know. It says 0 viewers on my, Streamlabs. I'm sorry, I was so busy looking at resources that I didn't look at the chat. Sometimes get super picky about my acceleration relative to friction to start moving. Is that like a collision detection issue, or...? Down the line, I think it would be helpful for me to have debug information displayed on screen of, like, my speed and hitbox and shit visualized. I think I'm gonna want to change the air movement code to reflect the facing thing instead. Parentheses again. I keep doing this. If sine h speed equals facing. Yes. Forgot about the colon. Oh, nice, Super Flame. Hope you have a happy 18th. I recently, like, last month, got the achievement of becoming even fucking older at 24.
Children.
Silence, elderly. Although I guess Super Flame would be literally a child for one more day. Yo, I've done that like once. It's wild. It's so hard to get that set up, but it's fun. Ugh. Yeah. Oh boy. Cat's circling me like a damn shark now. Or you want out of my room? I think he just went to me to draw my attention. Oh shit, Red. Remember yesterday when I was saying, hey, somebody who was 12 when Breath of the Wild came out would be 18 now? This is someone who was just barely 11 when Breath of the Wild came out, turning 18. Oh god, that's so weird. For context, Super Flame, Breath of the Wild came out right before my 18th birthday. So for me, that game kind of marks the transition point of being an adult. So thinking of somebody not even being a teenager when the game came out and now legally being able to vote is weird. I got the Wii U when I was 13, the year it came out on Christmas. This is a fucking age gap, holy shit. And then you go to Red. And his story would be almost like that for the Wii, I think? Not quite as dramatic, I think, but... My god. People who were children, not even teenagers, when the Switch came out, can vote now. And that's bizarre. I'm sitting here with my fucking GameCube nostalgia. And to Red, I sound like a child.
Children are getting conscious of their age.
Okay, Red. Oh, cool. Although, I was buying GameCube games before they were expensive as hell to get. Although my brother somewhat recently destroyed my copy of Double Dash. That's gonna be a pain in the dick to try to replace. I don't know how or when it happened, but the disc is destroyed. No, it was just Double Dash. But GameCube games are expensive. Oh, jeez, the Mario movie affecting game prices. I don't want to think about that. I've changed the physics a little bit to be based off of the facing direction in the air. Although I cannot accelerate back, it's interesting. Hmm. Oh, times sine h speed. I shouldn't be basing that on sine h speed. I should be basing that on h dirt. And that should be a plus equals. Why am I getting some silly speeds? I think it's just that the slowdown to my acceleration is still not enough to stop it from doing some silly things. You can do an instant momentum direction change. If you jump the instant you change direction. Or it's just you jump during turnaround. Oh, that's why. Interesting. I'm gonna need to do something about that. That's what was so fucky about the physics. Jumping during turn... What the fuck was that? But how does that affect the air physics? Why am I sometimes, if I do like a circle motion, getting like a forward speed boost in the air? Like, that was a small one, but... Like that. Why did that happen? Is that a frame drop? And it just applying the cumulative speed of what should be happening based on the frame drop? It would help if there was an on-screen frame rate tracker as well for that, so I could tell. But it doesn't look like it. It looks like sometimes when going forward from going backward, you can just get a big speed boost. We're not grounded. I actually have it so you don't have a capped acceleration when going backwards. I should probably change that. I'm thinking that unlike Mario, 2D Mario, or most of them, you are not able to turn around in midair. If you notice, when I start holding right, when I'm facing left in the air, he's still facing left. And vice versa. So, I had it so that when you were going backwards in the air, he didn't have a speed cap. Which wouldn't show up in many situations, but it could. Yeah, like Mario 1 does that. Most fighting games do that. Smash does that, for example. why is it that when I jump during the turnaround, it just reflects my speed? Minimum of these times H dirt. Wait. Oh! Because your H dirt is the other direction. But H dirt equals facing in this case. Okay, so you turn around, right? So let's say you have a horizontal speed of like you have a horizontal speed of like why am I trying to come up with arbitrary numbers? Just use basic numbers. It doesn't have to be accurate. So let's just say you have a horizontal speed of like -5, and then you jump while you're turning around to go right, which would make your speed go to positive. Normally, when you're doing skidding on the ground, your speed from -5 to 5 would slowly change to something else like +5 or some other shit. But because you hit jump, you are no longer on the ground, and what it checks is it runs this. Your current facing is considered right. Because when you were on the ground, when you hit right, your facing was changed to be to the right. And so when we get here, it says, does H dirt equal facing? It does. You're holding right, and you're considered facing right. So you hit jump, and then after you do that, it says your H speed, which is still like -5, equals the minimum of, and we'll just, this part, none of the stuff in here should matter that much because it's always a positive number, but absolute value of H speed, right? So -5 becomes 5 plus whatever this shit is, or whatever. So we get a positive number like 5 or something, or probably more than 5. And then we multiply it by H dirt. H dirt is +1 because you're holding right. Even though you had negative speed just the last frame, it changes it to positive speed instantly. Why doesn't that happen on the ground? Because the equivalent code on the ground checks if your H dirt is how it is relative to your speed. Right. Because ground always compares it to your speed, there's not a situation where your inputs and your speed would be the opposite sign, but then just flip it without it noticing, because it's comparing it to your speed, not to where you're facing, which doesn't necessarily line up with your speed. But I want to use facing in this case because air momentum is based on the direction you're facing, not based on what your existing speed is relative to your input. It's input relative to direction you're facing. So I would need to figure out what way I want to make it so that doesn't cause that problem for the moment you jump. Could that have to do with the speed boost as well in the air? It only works when you're going in the direction you're facing, right? Oh, is it when you instantly go from holding left to holding right with no in between? I don't know. That doesn't feel right. But if I'm doing that in the air, it should be running the same code, right? Going from left to right. So if I'm holding -5, I'm in the air, and I change it to push right towards facing. And facing is the direction. I'm facing right, I'm moving left, I'm holding right. I was not holding right last frame. Facing... now matches holding right. Yeah. So we would go here. Absolute value of your speed. I might need to have two different versions of this depending on if you're moving in the... if you're accelerating or decelerating. Just like for the moving in the opposite direction. That's probably just what I'm going to need to do. If sine h speed equals h dir. So let's put a note here. Are you accelerating? Else. Something more like this would work. Okay, so it's not quite working how I wanted. H speed plus equals acceleration times run mod times horizontal direction. We've already established that H speed and horizontal direction don't match. Horizontal direction should be right in this case. Oh, I'm an idiot. That's why. It should be there, not there. Yep. I think I want to limit your ability to decelerate backwards, but not decelerate forwards. Make it so that consistently moving backwards is harder than moving forwards. Also makes it harder to cancel out your forward momentum in the air. Exact values will need to be tweaked, but just as a rule of thumb. It's easier to gain speed forward in the air than to gain speed backwards in the air. I think it's a little dramatic right now, but that's fine. I can change that. Just don't want to do that right now. Cool. Got that part working. Okay. Wait. There were switch statements in Godot, right? In 2016, yet to be implemented. Match keyword? Okay, so they have their own thing called match statements, which are the equivalent. Okay, so match... So match state. Okay, no, you don't need the parentheses. Match state, stand. Change sprites. equal. Let's declare the textures. Do you declare arrays in Godot again? loading that. So if I now take this, change this to state block, change that to picture 1. Test. Jump. Test. Ball. Jump. Ball. 2. 3. Giving me an error with this one. Let's do it like this for that one. What the fuck is happening? Why am I getting this error? I don't want to write it like that, but make it work. I'm gonna put a note here for myself because I barely understand this. It's a weird system, but I get it. That should make it more readable. So that should still work. Cool. I've got the basics for animations working. Whee! This isn't meant to be any of the characters yet. This is just me getting the basic movement working. This is just the debug. I needed some kind of graphics to represent characters just to make sure everything's basic on the basic level is working. It would take a lot more work to animate each character for just testing purposes like this. And I'm not far enough in to start implementing different characters, because each character would be a modification of a base rather than like starting from scratch every time. Sure, crash test dummy. If you're grounded. Okay. And now I'm gonna test if Beater less than or equal to 0. I use parentheses again. Oh, I should not be using a single equal sign there. There we go. Let's add those to the states. Crouch and slide. friction. Times 0.25. Oh, wait, I didn't animate it. Hold on. That's why. I'm gonna wanna have a better rounding for when speed should equal 0. Because it takes a while for it to go, yeah, okay, now it's 0. Probably because of the high resolution assets. Ah! You should probably have more friction than sliding than that. When sliding, I think your facing direction should be tied to your H speed, not your input. I used parentheses on an if statement again. God damn it. Okay, now you can turn while crouched. Wait, why am I not able to walk left or right? Was I stuck in the floor? Somehow I got stuck in the floor. I think. I'm gonna need to figure out how and why that happens. Well, now it's just taking a moment to start moving. And now it just stopped working entirely. Is that a friction problem? Oh. After enough turnarounds, the friction starts building up to the point where you just can't accelerate anymore? Well, now I can reproduce it. I wonder if it has to do with this. Um, I think only a little bit. I think it's just what stops me from moving. I don't think it has anything to do with... No, it's not what just stops me from moving. I straight up can't walk now. So that's not it. It just feels like the friction is a problem. But why? Hmm. Well, putting aside for a moment that error, we are at a point now where I have most of the basic actions working on a basic level. There's a lot more polish and work that needs to be done on that, but I can control a character moving around a space and running and jumping and yada yada. Incredible. And it is the end time for the stream. So... feel pretty good about the steps done today. So, next week... It's last week of April, full week. I can't think of anything specific that will be happening next week that would cause a problem right now. So I should be ready to stream again next week. And yeah, I'll see you again as well. With that, though, I'm going to end the stream here. See you dudes next week. Hopefully finally get back to Star Fox. And bye-bye.